to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Before I tell you about today's guest, I want to share a big shout out to our show sponsor, Camp Chroma. Camp Chroma is your online, on-demand source for learning the DNA of color so that you can accurately measure color and therefore confidently specify color on your interior design projects. You measure for furniture scale, you measure square foot for tile needed, you measure for window treatments. Why not measure color? It makes sense, doesn't it? Go to campchroma.com to enroll now and to be on your way to confidently selecting and specifying color on all of your projects. Now, today's show, happy to introduce you to Breegan Jane. Have you come across Breegan yet? She recently spoke at Las Vegas Market this past summer 2018. She also has a fantastic blog called Breegan Jane, whose mission is to provide a comprehensive look at interior design in detail, as well as commentary on motherhood mastery and empowering women. Breegan Jane also has a podcast called Mom Life Yo, which she co-hosts with T. Lopez. They talk about the issues facing moms and business owners, especially when they are a mom and a business owner in the same, right? I happen to love a line from their podcast intro. I'll share it with you. It says, single me thought work was work. Now mom me knows that was vacation time. And I have to say, having my 8-month-old granddaughter in the house with us, I can tell you, I can relate to this all over again. Breegan's most recent project is the design of the new buzzworthy Los Angeles restaurant Native, spearheaded by award-winning chef Nyesha Arrington of Top Chef fame. A single mom from Southern California, Breegan Jane credits her parents and her sons for pushing her to break down walls and test boundaries. And now she uses her powerful voice to inspire others, which is exactly what I think you will experience for yourself today. Here is my conversation with Breegan Jane. Hi, Breegan. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, how are you?
I am good, and I'm looking forward to talking with you because when I do my research on people, Breegan, you know, it's everybody has something that's unique about them. That's what I've absolutely learned after this 2.5, almost 3 years on the podcast, that there is something really fun and unique about every single person. But seriously, lady, you got about 5 things here.
I'm a glutton for entrepreneurial punishment.
You are. I mean, you have a blog, which is successful. You have a high following on Instagram. You're an interior designer. You're a podcast/radio host. And you are also, in your previous career, you worked in luxury, as a creative director for luxury yachts. You worked as a property management person for, what is this? Multi-international million-dollar homes. I mean, my brain's spinning, Breegan.
And I'm going to play this recording in the shower every morning so I can remind myself on those days where I want to crawl in a hole.
Right. And here's the thing. You're like 33 years old. Like, that's the thing. I'm not talking to somebody who's 50, 60 years old. You've crammed a lifetime into like 10 years of adulthood here.
Thank you so much.
So I'm excited to pick it apart a little bit. The one thing I want to talk about was because this managing international real estate projects with a full staff, that seems like an intersection of interior design in a time tiny little far off way. But tell us about what your duties were, what the experience was, and how you transfer that to your present day as an interior design business owner.
Oh, we're going way like 20 jobs back now.
I just think that one has some interest there for me.
No, and thank you for the great question. I think what I learned the most were what different marketplaces are good at and how to put everything together in a sellable product that's interesting, and also marketing to an international market. So working with a yacht company, we manufactured our interior holes in Taiwan because they build the best interiors, but made in Taiwan is not the stamp usually somebody wants on a multi-million dollar boat, even though it's most of the realities. They're built in Taiwan and China, and there's very specific areas where those tradespeople live. And then our interior holes were made in New Zealand. And so we would ship those and bring them together. But I understood the marketing aspect of making, a product that we more, would say was made in New Zealand. And then our architect was in Canada, and our offices were in the US. And then, we were marketing mainly to Middle Eastern clients, ended up selling to Russian clients a lot. And it was just, the world got very small and approachable. And it was very interesting.
And so that experience from the standpoint of business itself, people, skills, development, I'm reading a couple of things. When you swim in that luxury world, you start to understand what motivates the affluent, what level of customer service needs to be. And then you mentioned the layer of the status of the marketing, right? Like you said, if we take some time to research it, we find out that the very finest interiors are produced in Taiwan. But like you said, it has a negative connotation made in Taiwan. Right.
And it was our exteriors in Taiwan, but our interiors in New Zealand.
Okay.
But yes, this is exactly what you're saying is completely true. And I also came into a company that was staffed mainly with all older males who were based out of Texas. And so one of the things that I came in, this young girl out of Hollywood, right? I came in this young girl out of Hollywood, and I was like, you guys, we got to have Crystal on the boat when we're showing it. And they just didn't understand that necessarily and allowed me to grow. I think as we learn from different experiences in all of our multiple jobs, the leadership is very important. And my boss and the CEO of that company really let me be good at what I was good at and develop the tools to be even better at it. And he gave me room to run, and it was awesome.
That's a huge statement. He let me be good at what I was good at and gave me the room to run. That's a huge statement. As a business owner, that is probably one of the trickier things that we must learn in order to be an effective leader and run a successful business, is to let go of that I'm the only one who knows anything and I'm the only one who can do it, right?
Absolutely. And he's somebody I try to emulate, and, as well as many other bosses, as being the person on the other side now. I realize how much that allowed me to grow just as a human, and I want that for everyone on my staff. So it's helped to have great bosses along the way.
Yes, great lessons in that. And so that is an unusual menagerie of personalities, right? I mean, even the wealthiest businessman in Texas who can stand shoulder to shoulder with the wealthiest Shah or whoever in the Middle East, their sensibilities and their culture is so completely different. And for you to be interacting on both sides with both different types of personalities, that had to be fascinating, actually.
Well, and let's not forget, I'm about 23.
That's what I'm saying,
black,
right?
Half white with a giant afro. And both in Texas and Dubai. That was an interesting thing that stood out. And I'm a woman, which doesn't matter where you are. It's just the being
How
empowered.
did you get that job? How did you get that job?
You know what? I started at the bottom with the company. I really came in just to help and to help my boss, and really didn't know where my talents would be utilized. And by the end of the relationship, there were a lot of people looking at me for direction. So I think you try to utilize every opportunity you're given to the best of your ability.
It's remarkable. I'm already amazed because it's the truth. I mean, honestly, think about that. Any woman in that position, let alone, like you said, the Afro, the LA, the half, half,
Black,
two different, half black and half white. It's just it's insane. And then you add the two stereotypes of the good old boys of Texas and the Middle Eastern culture with disregarding women. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, and I'll tell you, I didn't last in Texas much longer than 3 years. And part of that was when we traveled to Dubai, I felt so at home compared to Texas, which is inside the U.S. And that was very eye-opening for me on what makes me tick and where I want to call home and where I want to set down roots.
Because Dubai isn't as prejudiced to women as some of the other middle. I'm lumping them in wrongly.
You know what?
Right?
I think what I experienced was in Texas, the Good Old Boys Club has a uniform, whether that's socially, economically, or down to what all the girls are wearing and the purses they're, holding. I felt like Dubai is an international market, and the curiosity of different was encouraged. They do things their way, but it's an international place where everything sort of melts together and they respect other people's way. My personal experience in Texas was if you don't fit the bill, you don't fit in here.
Interesting. You've really thought about it. So insightful. Right.
Well,
and, we're just going to we're not going to blanket all of Texas with this. And I'm not even going to have, this is not, bashing Texas. Your experience. Exactly. Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. Interesting. So interesting. And so you take away from this at a very young age, a lot of lessons on culture, on status, on respect, on how business is done. And then we add to the layer of it, this swimming in this ultra luxury affluent market.
Yeah, and the importance of visual representation, whether it was our advertising pages that went out or, actually how our boat was staged, or, I really learned a different marketing aspect of how important it is to really have the visual representation be the most important.
The thing that attracts.
Yeah, because you can't, the person in Russia, the person in Dubai is looking at either imagery or a website or, and so that was a lot of my focus with them and things that I adjusted as I came in. I mean, I completely redid our logo from the time we started to when I left.
Mm-hmm. And your experience, you're young, so your experience came from your personal life. Like, how did are you just one of those people that was born with an innate sense of style and that looks rich or that looks quality, or what was your personal experience that influenced that?
Yeah, I think that we all, thrive the most with our natural given talents, and the creative world and the nerdy artist is who I always was. And I'm also very particular, but again, without the empowerment of a boss going, oh, you don't like our logo? Well, what would you do with it? And then having to rise up to that and having to have a team and draw it out and present it and really convince everybody was, on me. But without that empowerment and that opportunity, I might not have known that how good I was at it.
Exactly.
I just had a talent, and it got utilized for the benefit of all.
No, you need the space to, as you said, run with your ideas, and you need somebody who expresses a glimmer of confidence in you that maybe, maybe I can do it. I said I could do it, but now he's saying, okay. And you're like, well, I guess I better try that, right?
Right.
Okay. Interesting. And so now you come to the interior design world. Was there a stop in between this experience and going into the interior design world? Because how does this happen for you?
Yes. So I left the yacht company knowing I wanted to be back in LA. I loved the experience, but Texas was not the home that I wanted to set down roots in my mid-20s. And so when I moved back to LA, I sort of went into this world of I enjoyed that relationship I had with my boss, and I wanted to be able to help somebody else with a large profile that I could help, And so I went in and basically worked with a headhunter who placed personal assistant type roles and ended up in this estate management role for somebody with quite a bit of money and a lot of properties. And again, it was a great relationship where I was able to further develop through the access of funds, but also just being empowered to use my mind to really cultivate a lot of his properties and spaces. So that's where the sort of interior design came in. I mean, I would be handed keys to a giant office space and he'd be like, all right, we're moving in here in 2 weeks. And everything was up to me.
Whoa. And he hires you as a personal assistant. Does he make an assumption that that means that your first phone call is going to be, among others, but to an interior designer? And in the beginning, did you do that, call an interior designer, or did you just from the beginning run with it and go, I'll figure this out?
So he had property investments with a friend of his who was a builder more than a designer. He also had a specific look that he liked that was very easy to understand. It's Malibu, shabby chic, white slip-covered couch, very clean. But the first project that I literally got thrown into the week I was hired is he was just moving into a new property that she and his partner and he had built, but there were so many things that needed to be completed. It's like they had moved in, but everything wasn't done.
The punch list was still there.
The punch list was still there. And he, that first week, was out of town for 2 or 3 weeks. And he goes, when I get back, I want the house done. And that was my first project. And it was everything from, I want it done, and I think I want a fountain in the front yard. And Malibu is very specific and interesting. The septic tank systems live underground in the front yards. So now I'm having to call my boss's old assistants, and I'm like, how do I tell the guy he can't do a fountain in the front yard? Like, we just can't. It won't work. But then on top of that, one of the things that I did, because I've always had the responsibility of the entrepreneurial aspect as well, is I looked at his contractor's bill and I went, he's charging you $35 an hour for his subs. And I hate to even just throw out numbers there, but the first thing I did was I had a great relationship with our housekeeping staff and everyone else. So I went to the housekeeper and I go, ask the guys how much they get paid. And it was something like way less than, about a quarter of what he was charging. And it was dishonest. And the way that the billing, so I came back and I tore this guy's invoice apart and was like, you're being robbed because you have a lot of money, because you have this, that, and we can get this done if we just hire our own team. We don't need to be paying this money to paint a side half wall. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so therefore, again, like you said, putting the responsibility back on myself, he's like, okay, you can get it done for cheaper, do it. And now I'm like, oh, okay.
Careful what you ask for.
Careful what you say.
And so you were thrown into your first design project.
And then it just grew from there. I mean, he had multiple properties in LA, and with each one of them and my ability to perform and follow through, I think I got more responsibility and better understanding, and it just worked out really great.
It's baptism by fire. Is that what they call it?
Right?
But there is a part of you that just you're just willing to rise to the occasion, clearly, and take on the responsibility and not say, oh, no. It's just like, okay, let me figure it out. Let me get it done.
And so, when I don't know, and I try to learn. And I also constantly have to talk to that voice in my head that's going, you might fail. You might fail this time,
yes,
but you're still going to try. And I can't tell you, not 9 times out of 10, even when I think I'm going to fail, I'm like, oh yeah, I did figure that out. That I did do that. Wow. Didn't think I didn't even think I could.
Right. Well, there's just this part of you that is going to, it sounds like to me, that you're going to do whatever it takes. And if at the end of it you have failed, then you can live with it because you have done everything you could.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. Interesting. I had. It's reminding me of the interview I did with Amber Lewis over a year ago, and from Amber Interiors, and she said in the beginning when she was building her, empire in plain English, what she has now, and she's such a sweet person and works so hard. And she said in the beginning when she was literally working so many hours in a day and working so hard at building what she saw as her vision. She said there were many times throughout that first couple of years that, people close to her, family members, would say, you're putting so much into this. What if you fail? And she just said, and if I do, it's okay. But it's, for me, what's not okay is not chasing, right, and doing what I see and feel that I can do, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I love it. So now you transfer this, and of all the things, now there was lots of things that you could have taken away from that experience that you would have gone out on your own, but you like the process of interior design and the business of it, and now you have an interior design firm.
Yep. And I started out at 18 with a clothing store and eventually had a clothing line. So I knew there was that creative soul and that entrepreneurial spirit that I was going to get back to. Mm-hmm. I think as an interior designer, until you have the ability to actually build something, how would you know you're good at it? Mm-hmm. It costs a lot of money to be an interior designer or work on an interior design project. So I'm really glad that I had that experience into that world. Mm-hmm. So.
And now when you were doing it originally for this man and his partner, I mean, like you said, there was very little worry about budget at that point. And I don't mean to say the worry. You got the budget locked down, but the point is that you could specify. You're not looking around saying, "Oh, you can't afford that sofa." Like, you know what I'm saying, right? It was
exactly. But he was also very. One of the ways that I think developed our level of trust and why he allowed me to run so much is that I didn't do that. I would constantly look at things and be like, you don't need that sofa.
Okay.
I'm going to go find you sofa number 2. And it was a personal challenge for me because I love a good challenge, but also that allowed him to just give me large budgets without oversight over time because he knew I wasn't going to spend unnecessary. He didn't have to manage it. He knew I would manage it for him.
Right. He trusted that you had not only his best interest in heart financially, but design wise. It sounds like if you needed it, you got it. If you could do better or with something else, you would substitute.
I was going to do better. Yep.
Okay. And so, but now what happens when you go out on your own? And I know that you've had, from your bio, I know that you've had a lot of high profile, also high net wealth individual projects. But at this stage, are you only doing high net wealth individuals, or do you do projects for regular people that have regular budgets that really need to keep tight lids on things?
I do it all.
You do? Okay.
So I do. I enjoy the projects that people appreciate the talents that I've cultivated over the years. That's really what I'm looking for at the end of the day. I get offers from people and they might have high net worths and a big project, but if I understand I'm just going to be your therapist and you want to pay somebody to sort of shit on, so to speak. And sorry for that word. Got to cut it out. But I'm not your girl. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to be happy. I want to feel like I gave you something. And that to me is the most important profile about any client.
So how do you discern when you're talking to somebody? I don't think anybody has ever said that on the show before. I know that, okay? I know that sometimes we've talked about how a relationship can get sticky with a client when they start to overshare their personal information, and you feel the tug and the pull against, if maybe, for instance, the wife is oversharing her discomfort or unhappiness with her relationship with her husband. So we talked about how that's icky, okay? But you just said, if you just want me to be paid to pay me to be your therapist, I'm not interested. Is this something that happens with the ultra rich that you imagine and you can right away in a conversation realize that they're really not like, what is that? Tell me about that.
I mean, I think part of it is instinct, right? Like, whether or not we go into a coffee shop, you might have like a different natural reaction to different people, and there's no rhyme or reason, right? So you've got to go with instinct to a certain level. Sometimes you're halfway into a project when you see it. I use the best of my ability to try to discern those things from the beginning, but I definitely haven't always. But I think it's like when a husband and a wife, one wants blue tile and one wants green tile, and you realize that this choice is much deeper than the blue tile or the green tile.
Has nothing to do with the tile, right?
And then you realize that your role is not, if they don't want to rely on you for your expertise and they want you to either side with blue tile or green tile because of all the emotional issues underneath that, it's a difficult place for designers that I don't think is talked about enough.
Okay. I understand that now. I was not understanding what that meant, but I hear you now. So, and it is so true. We all run into our businesses with these types of situations where the argument or the debate over this or that choice really has to do with one spouse or another winning, not really what they really want or care about with the design. Okay. And so let's talk about it, because you're right. We haven't talked about that. So I hear you. You get better I'm going to talk for you now. Tell me if I'm right. You get better as the years go by at being able to identify that earlier in the process so that you just can have the strength and understanding to know that this is a no-win situation and to walk away. But talk to me about, share with somebody who might be listening right now and saying, oh my goodness, that's my customers. That's my clients right now. You have any tips or advice for extricating yourself, or is that really the advice? Just cut the deal and get out. What do you think?
No, I think you have to be really good at building your systems if you find yourself in that role. It's so easy to do a walkthrough and have the wife say, and by the way, this happens with individual clients, so I can get to that as well, but put everything in writing. That would be my tip, and communicate everything and keep track of everything. A difficult job is going to require you to be on your P's and Q's 120%, because there's sort of that backlash where I've also seen shared enemies can unite people. So you don't want to be on the receiving end of
side.
That. So I really think that the more difficult it is, the harder you have to work, and the more you have to manage everything about it. Even on the good projects, I know which plumbers I've got to do this for, and I know which guys I just don't even need to babysit at all at this point. And luckily that comes from building a team. But even on the vendor side, it's like, this guy does great glasswork, but I already know he's going to come with 20,000 questions, and I'm going to need to check his bill 10 times. This vendor over here is going to get it done in a week, and I don't have to ask him anything.
Right. I understand that. It's so true. We have a couple of vendors here in the window treatment industry for me, and there's some, like, my husband just will not give business to a vendor who must, in our words, we call it, be babysat. And he doesn't care. He's not even the person that's to babysit them, but he resents that anybody in our business has to babysit them. But I will not give as much business to that vendor, but there are certain things that vendor can accomplish and do that others cannot. And then I go into it clear-eyed, knowing that it goes right into the schedule, the extra status phone calls. Yes, exactly. Yep. It's like having that one kid that just doesn't want to get dressed and get their teeth brushed before they go to school. Everybody's lined up and ready, and one is still like at the cereal bowl. It's like, come on, let's go.
Exactly. I have 2 kids at home, so you're speaking my language.
Exactly. So, and that's another big part of the Breegan Jane brand, is that you are all about empowering women and moms in particular, and you've got this radio show, Mom Life Yo, where you have a partner there where the two of you women talk about, the trials and the tribulations of what it is to raise a family. But you're it's very front facing that this is an aspect of you. So when anyone listening, if you go to Breegan Jane's website, the interior design work is there, but it's also very clear that you have multiple verticals, for lack of a better way, that you are involved in and that are important to you. And this being a mom and being an entrepreneur and empowering women to do that is important for you, Breegan. Tell us why and what that means to you.
Yes, it's everything to me. And especially as a single mother who went through a divorce and had to really lean into my career in a different way, being someone who had to depend on myself financially to be able to put my kids in whatever college they want to go to. There was a different seriousness to it. And I've also had the ability to see the different challenges as a woman, both who's been overly empowered by strong men, but then I've also had the very typical experience of being undermined in meetings for being a woman or the way I look. And it's very interesting to me how much that has shaped who I am and my ability to perform now. And it is important to me that everyone else gets those opportunities of empowerment and safe spaces of honesty, because otherwise you can't grow.
I'm sitting here wondering, and this is a tricky question to ask, but I'm sitting here wondering, if you mentioned half black, half white, young girl, big afro, that's a lot to stack on somebody. And there's a lot of people that would say on face value, this person, this caricature of a person is not going to have a door open for her in Texas or in Dubai and is not going to be empowered. What do you think it is, Breegan? What do you bring to the table that you feel helps people look past? You have a lot of stereotypes happening there. Young youth, right? Okay, it's a lot of things. It's not just. Yeah.
I'm gonna be frank, and I think ignorance is bliss. I think that to a certain extent, I never even recognized it. And I had the upbringing where I was able not to see that in myself as anything other than a positive. I grew up modeling as a child. My look was always complimented. I grew up in Los Angeles in a small community where racial divide and stereotypical things, didn't come down on me. I think my parents protected me from that in a huge way. I was also adopted, so I have 2 Caucasian parents, which is even more interesting. Right. In some ways. So I never thought to think any less of myself for any subconscious things that were being told to me outwardly. Like, I was shielded by that. So I just broke down doors without even knowing I was breaking them down.
Right.
And I also rejected any sort of box that anyone tried to put me in, like living in Texas. And, I would go eat sushi by myself, and people would just look at me like, what are you doing? Well, by yourself. Second of all, why are you in this really nice restaurant by yourself? Like, no one knew what to do with me, but I just kept doing it because I was like, but I feel like sushi and I'm going to go eat it.
It's just sushi, people.
But I think sometimes we limit ourselves by the perception of what others have told us we are our entire lives. And I'm now raising 2 Black boys in Venice Beach, and I understand the realities. I'm a woman in business. Construction is a male world. I'm not blind to those things the same way I might have been at 19 or 20, but I really think that helped me view myself as a capable human.
I have to say, it sounds like you said it, but I'm visualizing, can you attribute it to your parents? Because to me, it seems like they just raised you to accept yourself for the amazing, wonderful, beautiful little child you were and the young woman you became. There was no extra stuff put upon you.
I think that is a huge part of it. And my dad has done very well in business, and he's always been somebody I can call and talk to. And he, I think he treats me the same way he treats my brother, his son. It's just, that's the world that I was raised in.
Right. He doesn't say,
capable.
pretty you are modeling and you don't need to teach you business. So I'd say he took you and empowered you.
100%.
Awesome. It's so crazy how we're such a product of our the influences, the people that raise us, whether it be our parents or the extended family that has such an influence on us. It's on the show, I've often talked about how my mother and my aunt, and they were involved in the Silva method and yada, 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 and how I really didn't struggle with a lot of this. It's like, come on, let's do it. We're going to do it. And it really is because I was just always taught, well, if not you, who? If you can't do it, who can do it? Right. It's like, well, okay, all right. And there is that moment where you're like, I could do it. And then somebody says, okay, do it. And you're like, whoa, okay, I guess I better do it. Right. But then you do it once and you succeed. And you're like, okay, let me try that again. It sounds similar for you, Breegan, that you were like your word is empowered. It's on your website, it's on your podcast, description, and I feel that it's a word I'll always associate with you now because you were given it as a gift and you're passing it back out to the universe.
I hope so. And I also think that we shouldn't limit ourselves by our upbringing or our experiences. Life is very real and not everyone might have that base. My kids are going to grow up in a single mom household, very different than mine. But I think mentorship and these lessons, especially in your early teens and 20s, can really shape who you are. I was lucky to have my first business experiences with a male boss be nothing but positive, and I've been really blessed to have a lot of mentors that throughout my life that I've sort of cultivated or invited to lunch and teach myself all these things and emulate who I want to be, not what people are saying I should be.
And you know what? It's funny because you said it. My kids are going to grow up in a single mom household, but based on your life and your upbringing and like you said, all of this, they're not going to grow up with that as their identifier. Right?
I hope not.
No,
I
know they're not
to be their identifier.
No, that's what I'm saying. You will step them past that caricature of that identifier, right? I don't imagine one day, they'll be in their 30s and they'll say, "Well, yeah, we had only a single mom household, but what's wrong with that? That was great. Mom was great." Like it's not going to be a limiter for them.
I think that's it. I think turning all your talents and pain into the fuel that, allows you to grow and the fire that continues to burn is so important. We're all going to have hurt in our lives. We're all going to have letdowns, but you can either choose to sink or to swim. Mm-hmm. And if you turn those, every time I've taken a negative and turned it into a positive, that positive is so much more powerful. So I think that that's important. Your limiters can be what fuels you.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love your frame of mind and your outlook, and I love that you acknowledge the ways that your initial bosses have helped you, and that you turn around and are doing that and putting it back out into the world. It's remarkable. So, Breegan, tell me, what's next for you? You're only 33 years old. What do you have on the horizon? What are your dreams? What do you want for Breegan Jane?
I think that I want to continue to grow Breegan Jane into a brand. And I love that and I hope that other people will continue to associate it with empowerment. Mm-hmm. I would love to get more into the world of product development. I want my brand to be more reachable to more people. So that's the main area of the focus in the background that I don't think a lot of people know is going on, and that I'm passionate about right now.
Okay. So this means that one day we're going to walk into department stores or somewhere, and we're going to see the Breegan Jane brand. Or is it restaurants? Like, where should we look to find you?
I hope you can walk into a store and find my products in the future. And it is very scary for me to say out loud, but I have to be honest with myself, and I'm working very hard towards getting there one step at a time.
I commend you for saying it out loud. I acknowledge you saying it out loud, and I empathize with you. It is hard to put something like that out into the universe in such a huge way. You're not sitting at the dinner table with your friends. You've just said it to tens of thousands of interior designers. So I just...
and if I fail, it's okay.
That's right. That's what I love. But I'm going to try.
Right. And I'm going to put out there what I really want, because, we are only limited by our own minds.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's sometimes on the way to what we believe we want most that we find what we really do, what really is best for us. And it's not always the same thing, but you can't find the other without setting down the road on the one, right?
Exactly. But sometimes you take these amazing detours where you're like, wait, how did I end up here?
Exactly.
And you love it. So
that's exactly right.
I think the path definitely winds and, brings you to different openings that you never knew were there.
Right. And that is something that I believe is important to cultivate, is to listen. And I will be surprised if you're not already very good at it, but it's the cultivating of listening to that voice. So right now your voice is, brand development, product development, national, international, recognition of whatever it is that you are developing, right? But there could be a moment where you're just, something else comes along and you just, wait, maybe it's that. And there is that skill set to know, is it a fear and a rationalization that I walk away from that dream, or is it truly a true intuitive moment and a lesson that something else is the better move? It's a fine line there, right?
It's very tricky. And even at the beginning of this year, I took, the quote unquote great office job in Silicon Beach for a tech company. And I found myself in a relationship, not with a couple, but with a client that I felt like was paying me great money to not utilize my talents in any way. And it became a stressor. And it took me pushing past fear to let go of that client in a very appropriate professional way. But, I think most people would have hung on to it because of fear, and fear was keeping me hanging on to it, and I needed to let it go. So sometimes too, the perfect shiny penny is not always exactly what it's supposed to be.
Right. Don't you find that when you know in your gut that you have made a really hard decision, but you've done it despite it being hard, that you just feel so, like, I'm going to just use your word, empowered by it? It's like, that was hard, and all points pointed towards doing it. It was easier to do it than it was to walk away from it. But when you've done it, it's just like, yeah, I did that.
Making the impopular decision is always challenging, but definitely more satisfying.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I love it. You're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. I'm so inspired by you. I'm so grateful that you came and you shared your time with us today, Breegan. And I cannot wait to walk into a store and see your face on a product.
Oh, thank you.
That's going to be so much fun. And then you're going to have to come back on the show and tell us all about it.
I will have learned 100 more lessons.
Exactly. That's exactly right. See, that's the thing about you. That's so amazing right there, that's your first reaction. By then I'll have learned 100 more lessons. That's such a great outlook on life. Really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Every so often, a guest comes on the show and says a line that just hits you right between the eyes, right? A powerful line that you just cannot escape. Here's just one of those lines from Breegan that was so very clear and so powerful.
That I think turning all your talents and pain into the fuel that, allows you to grow and the fire that continues to burn is so important.
I mean, right? We all have things that knock us down, that make us feel like we're going uphill. Whether it looks like that to anyone else or not, we feel it, right? So how do you handle it? I have to say, just last week, I was listening to Barbara Corcoran's new podcast, and a listener asked her, Barbara, why does an entrepreneur have to have a positive outlook? And her answer was, because being in business is a little bit like being in love, Barbara said. She said the beginning is all happy and rosy and exciting. And then a few years in, let alone many years in, when it isn't so new, it's going to be hard. And that's when the people with a positive outlook will make the difference and be successful. So just like Breegan says, you're going to have hardships. You're going to have people who judge you, dismiss you, not get you. It's up to you to turn that into the fuel that grows your business. I love it. I love it a lot. And I have a really huge treat for you, too. If you are going to High Point Market in a few weeks, October 2018, Breegan is going to be on a panel that I put together. That's right. It's going to be Breegan Jane, Rachel Cannon, and Lori Paranjape, Mrs. Paranjape. And I have to say, if you have missed either Rachel Cannon's episode or Lori Paranjape's episode, go back and listen to them right now. I mean, like right now, because together, these three women, we are going to have the most fantastic conversation about real strategies for growing your business. So I hope that you will join us. This will be Monday, October 15th at 11 o'clock a.m. at Gabby Home. All right. I'm doing several events at High Point Market this fall. I'm also going to be 3 o'clock leading a panel with My Doma Studio. We're going to have 4 or 5 all My Doma Studio users, designers who use the platform, and I am going to pick it apart and find out all the things that they utilize and what they like about the platform. What's really interesting about this particular panel is that each of these designers are actually leaning in to one, I guess, what do you want to call it? One process of it more than the others. And oddly, they all are favoring one, a different part from the other. So it's going to be very, very good, especially if you're on the fence, okay, about using My Doma. All right. So I have other events that are happening over High Point. Please go to luannnyegara.com, click on the events page, and you will see what's going on. But also follow me on Instagram at luannnyegara or Facebook at A Well-Designed Business, because these are probably the best ways to always know what's going on. And lastly, don't forget, 1 week from now, we're going to be in Chicago for the Chicago Design, and I will be having a panel discussion with Chad James and Candy Scott, and then I will be talking with David Phoenix at the Kravitz showroom, and then at the Lefroy Brooks showroom, that's where the Chad James, Candy Scott panel is, and then later in the day, I'll be doing a presentation and a book signing. So if you're in the Chicago area, please come out. All righty? So I want to thank you for joining me today. I also want to ask you if you have figured out your action for today, right? Let me make a suggestion. Maybe today your decision is to be, in order to be excellent, right, will be to know, to decide that any hardship in your path is there for a reason, to just accept that it's there for a reason. It's there for you to grow. It's there for you to find its lesson so that you can be better today than you were yesterday. And I'd say that's a pretty good decision to make, to just accept and lean in and look and learn and listen for that lesson, okay? You have to decide that the lesson is valuable and that it's a gift for you. That's the decision part, okay? Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannniagara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.